Hey VC, thought I'd come on here and make a video. Here in Texas lately it's just been real hot. I actually have gotten out and done a little bit of yard work and things like that early in the morning to come in here before it gets too hot and take the rest of the day inside if I can. It's been in the hundreds, and they say it'll probably be 100 and above for, I don't know, going on into next week. So I guess we're getting our dog days of summer early this year. But I was online here the other day, and I was looking at Craigslist, and there was an ad in there from a place in a little town east of here by about, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 miles, something like that. And she said, or the ad said, that they had their CDs and DVDs on sale, and they said they had a bunch of them. And you know, it had a little picture in there of it, and said they had them on sale for 70 cents. So I was kind of intrigued with what they had. Was it really, well, I didn't know what to expect, but here in, you know, smaller towns of Texas, I've grown up to get my hopes up too high. You know, it's hard to find anything that's real esoteric or anything like that. But for the price, I thought I'd, you know, drive over there and see what she had. And indeed, she had a lot of stuff. She had a lot of DVDs and some CDs and even a little vinyl. But the vinyl wasn't much to speak of. Generally here in the town where I'm from, which is Tyler, I mean, like if you say you have vinyl, you know, the trend has caught on, you know, amongst a lot of people. And if you just happen to have the album and it's scratched all, you know, looks like they used it for a scouring pad, they still want, you know, $10 and up for it, or something ridiculous. You know, unless you can just find it at a Goodwill store or someplace like that. And even Goodwill has gotten to where they'll, you know, they kind of get a little bit pricey on some of that stuff, and there's really nothing there anyway. But anyway, I drove over there, and it's just a real small town. It was at ARP, a place called ARP, and I think it's about, you know, 1,000 population, just like, you know, very, very small town with a train track running through there, and that's about it. A few small stores. You know, after I got through, you know, looking at her place, I wondered where they all went to get their groceries, and I guess they just have to drive, you know, either over here or further north and buy their groceries. But at any rate, it was sort of an interesting experience. And I did find a few things, not a lot. You know, I wasn't expecting to find a lot, really. But I did find a few things. Like I found this Doors Out, or CD. This is a 2 CD set. I already had a LA Woman actually on vinyl. And but here recently, the Doors, Robbie Krieger and John Desmore, the drummer, did an interview with Dan Rather on Access TV, and it was a real good interview, and it kind of got me wanting to hear some of the Doors music again. And this 2 CD set, and what it is, it's got the original album on here, LA Woman, and then it's got some previously unissued, you know, like alternate cuts, and even a song I've not heard. One of them says "She Smells So Nice," and there's one on here called "Rock Me." But yeah, I picked that up for 70 cents, and the discs were in good shape. And then I picked up this one as well. This is a 5 CD set by Poco. And I've got several of these on vinyl as well. And I asked her how much she wanted. This first one, their first album right here, which I guess I can pull it out and show you. This one, Picking Up the Pieces, is really a pretty good album. I've always liked this album. Kind of grew up with it for one reason, but yeah, it's a good album. This is Richie Fury, and I forget who else is in the band, but you might remember Richie Fury from Buffalo Springfield, and I've always liked the way he sang. Like this album here, actually these two albums, are well worth picking up. They're kind of you know, country rock inspired. This also had Steve Stills, Neil Young, and Richie Fury in the band, along with a couple other guys whom I'm forgetting their names of right now. But I've always really liked this one, which was their last album called Last Time Around. And I've always liked, you know, good vocalists, and particularly groups that can harmonize well together. I guess I got that from my, actually I pulled this out and listened to it here the other day too, from I used to sing in the choir. This is a album that we did back in junior high, and on one side is the girls choir, and on the other side is the mixed choir. Here we are on the back, as you can see. And let's see here, where am I on here? That's me right there, standing next to the young girl there. But at any rate, I've always been into choir and singing and everything, and harmonizing and what have you. Sang in the choirs in high school, and even in college. I sang in college choir for some credit. But anyway, back to Poco. This is a pretty good album. It's not quite as good as their first album. It's got some live cuts on it. So I used to have it, and I'd gotten rid of it back in the day. But it's good to have it again, so I'll listen to it again. This is another good one by them, Crazy Eyes, From the Inside. Used to have a friend that played bass, and he liked Poco a lot too, and we'd listen to this album here and try and pick out some parts on it. And he was actually a pretty good bass player. He was quite a bit younger than me, but he was an interesting guy, and often wondered whatever happened to him. He was a son of one of the engineers that I worked with at work, and he asked me if his son could come over. His name was ATN. He had a real unusual name, I thought. And I said, yeah, sure. You know, he wanted somebody to play with, and I was more than happy to, you know, try and, you know, play with somebody, and living in such a small town. And he was actually pretty good. I enjoyed playing with him. I found this one over there as well, and she only charged me, this is 5 CDs, she only charged me $3 for that, so that was a good deal. I found this as well. This is Watcher of the Skies. This is a Steve Hackett album. I had never seen this, didn't even know this album existed really until, I don't know, several years ago. I've always been a big Genesis fan, and you know, I knew of Steve Hackett and everything, but I never really knew of this particular album. But a couple of years ago I saw it, and I've never seen it, you know, while looking around in a record store or what have you. But it's actually it's a live album, and it's got you know, it's them revisiting the Genesis catalog, song catalog. It's got you know, of course, Steve Hackett's on it with John Wetton, Bill Buford from Yes and King Crimson, and other bands. Paul Carrick, I believe he was from Squeeze. Tony Levine, or Levine, Ian McDonald, Alfonso Johnson, who is a bassist. Colin Bloodstone, which played in the Singer of the Zombies. And it's an interesting album. Having said that, though, I mean, like, and in fact, it even opens with "Watcher of the Skies" as the first song on this, but it doesn't compare in any way, shape, or form to the first Genesis live album. This to me would always be a classic, but I was real happy to find this one, for the price that I found it for, which was 70 cents, just to get a chance to hear what it sounded like. And I've only listened to it once, so I can't really form too much of an opinion about it. All I can say, right now is just that I thought it was sort of interesting to hear and to be able to get to hear. So maybe as I listen to it a little bit more, I'll like it a little bit more. And then I found this one. This is music from the Pleiades, which is a star system, or a star system, and the composer is Gerald J. Marco, who I've never heard of, but I think this came out in the late 80s, and it's on the Astro Music label. But the whole way it's set up kind of appealed to me, and it says music from the Pleiades, celestial music for relaxation, meditation, and healing, inspired by the star cluster Pleiades. It says it's recorded on an orchestra of 24 synthesizers in Astro Music's Crystal Field studio. So that kind of drew me in from the get-go. And then it goes on to talk about, the star system is a cluster in the constellation of Taurus. And that's where he derives the songs, that he wanted to create on here. It says there are many ancient legends about the Pleiades. For example, the Turohas, a primitive tribe in Indonesia, build saucer-shaped temples in remembrance of the ancestors who came here from the Pleiades in saucer-shaped ships a long time ago. In numerous reports of extraterrestrial encounters from different parts of the world, the space beings indicate the Pleiades as their place of origin. And then he's got like some other lore and notes about the album on here. But it just totally kind of like drew me in from the packaging, and I was intrigued by having read that on the back. And it's a pretty neat, little, it's new age album that's kind of along the lines of a lot of stuff like back in the day, like Michael Stearns or Steve Roach, and just a lot of those albums back in the time of back when New Age was going strong. So I was happy to find it. It's sort of an interesting album. Then I found a couple of classical albums, or like comps actually. This is Classics of the Silver Screen on the Telarc label, and I probably would not have picked this up. It comes with a little booklet right here, and I didn't ever pull out the booklet to look at it. I just saw the back of it, and it had all these different themes from movies, like Ordinary People, The Witches of Eastwick, Amadeus, Barry London, My Geisha, Somewhere in Time, Moonstruck, Raging Bull, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Driving Miss Daisy, Diva, Kramer vs. Kramer, A Room with a View, The Elephant Man, and Platoon. Various ones, and it was 77, from those movies, and then like it has the composers that created the pieces. Anybody from Pachelbel, Pachelbel canon, Mozart's inclined night music. That's on just about any comp I've ever seen. If there's a compilation with Mozart on it, that one song will probably be on it. But there's some Rachmaninoff and some Puccini, some Dvorak, Mozart, Vivaldi, and some Samuel Barber, and like a lot of various music from a lot of different classical composers. I didn't know though there's like several actual opera type stuff on here, and I'm not the hugest opera fan. But I was listening to this today, and generally opera is kind of a turn off for me, particularly if it's, well, I can't ever understand any of it that they're singing because they don't speak the languages, whether it's, Italian or whatever. But the ones that were on here weren't too bad. There's a Richard Leach that sings tenor in one of these, and there's a Diana Soviero who sings on My Geisha, which is a cut from the Madame Butterfly. I guess the play, and she sings soprano on that. And so there's just different things, and there's like some piano along with some orchestration on part of it from the Rachmaninoff stuff. So yeah, I mean it's okay. I mean for the price, 70 cents, you can't beat it. Here's another one that's another classical composition, Baroque at Bathtime. And like I said, it's from a bunch of different composers. But with this one, it's not so much orchestration. There's a bunch of, like there's a Vivaldi guitar concerto in D, and there's a oboe concerto in D minor. So you have like guitar concerto, oboes. Let's see, there's a Four Seasons on here, which is the winter part. There's some flute concertos. There's a couple of flute concertos, and just I don't know, like some. There's one section of the water music by Handel. I don't know. It's just they're kind of like more chamber pieces, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I like the cover, and the music on here is really pretty nice as well. Whoever put together this package really did a good job on the continuity of the music and matching it all up. But I've seen this in stores, and I think they've got other ones too, which you can see on the insert there. But yeah, pretty good little CD. This is another one. This is classical, what does this say? The most relaxing classical music in the universe. And this is another compilation of various classical composers on the Dune label. It's a 2 CD set. And golly, you've got, and here you go again, you got like Mozart on here with inclined night music. You've got Pachelbel's canon. You got Tchaikovsky's string quartet, Debussy's Clair de Lune, and Debussy's The Girl with the Flaxen Hair, Bach's Air on G string. A lot of these I've got on different albums, but it's kind of a neat little CD to have as just a comp. There's Vaughan Williams plays the Greensleeves on here, some Eric Satie, some Mozart piano concertos, and oh golly, just a various bunch of different composers, but two CD set for 70 cents isn't bad. Then I found this one here. This is Sarah Chang on EMI Classics. This is her debut. There she is as a young child violinist. And I was just kind of intrigued to what this sounded like, her being so young. Of course, that's a picture of her earlier, but that's a picture of her when the CD was made. And it's not too bad. Again, this has various composers on it. She plays the violin, and Sandra Rivers plays the piano on here. And there's stuff like Edward Elgar. There is, oh golly, just a bunch of different composers. Paganini is on here. Franz Liszt. Frederick Chopin. Dmitri Shostakovich. You should listen to a NPR radio show. In fact, we still get it out here where I'm at now. That comes on in the mornings, called Performance Today. And he played a lot of string quartets and stuff like that. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting CD, with young Sarah Chang on it. And she's awful good too for her age. I was listening to this here too. Cosmic Pickle talked about this here the other day, and I got real curious about it and came in here and dug it out. This is Gary Peacock along with two other musicians. Art Land, or Art Landy, I'm not too sure how he says his name, plays the piano, I believe, and then you got a bass player on here. But a drummer. Gary Peacock plays the bass, which is awfully good. That's what kind of drew me into the music, actually, is listening to his I believe it's a stand-up bass, but Gary talks about this on his Cosmic Pickle channel, and got me interested in it. So I had to come in here. Got my records in this part of the house, and had to check it out. And it really is a really good album. Very worthwhile if you can find it. It's on the ECM label. Gary's a real big ECM fan, along with a lot of us. So let's see, I saw Dune came on here the other night, which is the David Lynch film, and I heard that they are remaking that. The guy the director that made the new Blade Runner movie is working on the new Dune film, and I'm not much for remakes, although some remakes like John Carpenter's The Thing I think is really good, and there's some other ones. But I didn't think, really that Dune should be remade. I don't think anything's going to make the Dune crowd happy, to tell you the truth. Because it's such a hard thing to, adapt to the screen, for one thing. But if anybody could do it, and I forget that director's name, he's, I believe, a French guy, he could do it, because he's made some really good films. But at any rate, I pulled out my Dune soundtrack, and it's amazing that Toto were the band that did the music for this. There's one cut on here that Brian Eno was on, the Prophecy theme, I believe it is, yeah. Was composed by Brian Eno, Daniel Lanois, and Roger Eno. But the rest of and I'm not a huge soundtrack fan. I don't buy a lot of them, but this is a good one to pick up if you can find it, and particularly if you like the movie. It's a really neat movie. I like it. But at any rate, I listened to this, and then there's this other. Supposedly this was based on the movie as well. This is a French progressive band called Eros, and their album they titled Dune, and here they are. They are a kind of Zool band in the mold of, say, something like Magma and a lot of those type bands, but this is a pretty neat album. It's not easy listening. You kind of got to be in the mood for it, but yeah, you've got you know, they have a couple of songs on here called Arrakis and one called Acoustic Fremen, the desert dwellers on the planet of Arrakis. But and there's a lot of flute on here, and you know, of course, it's electrified music. Not quite jazzy, but sort of jazzy. I mean, Zool is a real hard music to describe, but it's just kind of fusiony, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But yeah, it's sort of an interesting album from these French guys. I believe they only made this one album, and it's a pretty interesting one. It doesn't remind me really that much of the movie at all, but I hadn't heard it in a while. I thought I'd just kind of pull it out and listen to it. So anyway, there you go. That's what I've been doing this summer. Staying inside and going outside and just doing what I have to do, you know. I saw where part of my gutter has come down on one side of the house. I need to put that back up. I just haven't figured out what I want to do with it yet. But right now, just coming inside in the afternoon is trying to stay out of the heat. So hope everybody's doing well. We'll talk to you later. Bye.